Okay, Taher, so you're the only person running for VP except for Ron, and Ron is reopened nominations, guys. So if you think that Taher is not capable, you can always vote for Ron. It's up to you. Can you please do your introduction now?
Hi guys, my name is Taher. I'm a second year law student. I'm the LexisNexis brand manager for the campus of LTS. I'm a student ambassador. I was part of the Great Start project in FANS. I'm the current communications officer for the Law Society. I have been extremely active in both my first year and my second year. I stay involved in all SU events, and for that reason, I feel that I'm the right one for the Law Society, having already been there this year and last year.
Thank you very much, Taher. Can I ask you, why did you decide to run for vice president and not the president itself?
Good question. So basically, this year I was the communications manager, and I had a lot of things that I wanted to change in terms of the policies. I implemented a strict 7-day policy when we had events that were planned, because I had enough of doing it last minute. The advertising was rubbish. One of my notable achievements is last year the Law Society was on 300 likes on the Facebook page. We have now risen to 700 likes. Our Twitter base has gone higher. And also generally, because I was in first year at the time, I felt that I'd be out of my capacity to run for something when I generally didn't have as many connections as I do now. Whereas now I feel that I have quite a few connections, I've built my networking base, and I'll be able to share that with our members and with the university in general to boost prestige.
Yeah, so VP, why not president? That was the original question.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to run for presidency in the sense that I know that a president, there's a lot of stress that gets taken on. I'm going to be honest, of course I'm a student just like everyone else. I'm not going to take on more than I can handle. I feel that as president, I would generally be acting out of my capacity in that it would be too much. I feel that VP is alright because I'll be working in a partnership with the president, and it wouldn't be me making sole decision making. There will be other people in that process.
I'm glad you said partnership, and as you don't have anyone with you, I'm going to relate you to other candidates, especially for presidency.
Yeah.
You propose having more workshops, whereas Yaman, who is running for president, has proposed less, as he believes there are too many. Can you explain your decision and how you would deal with this potential conflict?
God damn. It'll all be explained.
Okay,
I'm sure she'll be just as ruthless as me.
Yeah, well,
okay, to begin with, no offense to Yaman, but I believe that there can be never too many workshops, so I would never want to reduce the amount of workshops. This year we have had BPP University of Law. We haven't had any workshops from the GLS. Our vice president now, who's done a very, very amazing job, he brought in people from the FCO. We haven't had no one from the government legal service. We've had no workshops on specific areas. We've had no workshops from specific firms. We may have brought in BPP and University of Law. We haven't brought in Kaplan, who are the top law school in the country. We haven't brought in City Law School, who also have a very respectable BPTC and LPC program. The university itself, their LPC is pretty much non-existent because we haven't utilized our own internal networks. So for that reason, I would say they are the workshops that I'm going to bring in.
Can I just pick you up on a point? You said we've had no specific workshops with any firms. I'm going to refer to the CMS workshops we've had recently. Is that not specific?
CMS is specific in terms of they are our sponsors. I'm talking in terms of academic workshops, not career development. If we're talking on career development, again, in my manifesto, it states that I want to bring in production teams, media teams. Why can't we bring in the BBC? Let's bring in someone from the government legal service. I'm in talks with Slaughter and May, firms like that now, to actually bring them in so they can do a discussion, meet trainees, meet pupils, things like that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you love this society a lot because every year you seem to come back for more. What I want to ask you is, we want a diverse range of candidates. Why shouldn't people vote for Ron so that they have more of a choice when voting? Reopen nominations, it's not Ron Weasley.
So people should generally vote for me rather than have a more diverse range. First of all, as stated before, I have already been part of the society this year on the executive board. I already know the connections and the links that the society already holds. Secondly, I've done several things throughout my time in university that has allowed me to establish links with barristers, solicitors, trainees, academics, journalists, people from all across the sector. If you vote for a more diverse range of people, so more people step forward, don't get me wrong, I'm all for competition. I encourage competition. However, while I have this opportunity, I will say that I feel that I am the best for the role. I can bring in things that I don't feel other candidates do. And I'm also slightly eccentric at times, so I can bring in strange ideas that no one else will think of.
I think that's actually quite a fair argument, because if it was to be more diverse and more people were brought in, then surely they should have applied in the first place if they were that keen on the role. So I respect that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
We're not allowed to say. Okay, so you said before that the reason why you didn't run for president is because you didn't feel you were up to that. But as we've had this year, sometimes, God forbid, something could happen to the president, you would become acting president. So how would you deal with that scenario?
How I would deal with that scenario is, as vice president, obviously, when I decided to run for the role, I already knew Saudi showed me a love heart just for the camera. But just to answer that question, this year, of course, Imran had to take the acting presidency role because our current president is unfortunately he isn't here right now due to unforeseen circumstances. When I chose to run for the role, I already knew that could be a possibility. However, if elected, I will make sure that I work closely not just with the president, but also the other executives. We are as a student society, you may have the figurehead. I mean, I'm sure Khalid will agree, if he's in the audience, that the SU elections are very similar in the sense that he may be the figurehead, but he works closely with the other sabbatics to ensure that, sabbatical officers, to ensure that consistency and dedication is spread throughout the entire university and all of the campuses. That's something I would do. I would make sure that the other executives, not just the elected executives, but also the appointed executives, will be more included within the decision making and all of that. So yeah, delegation.
Thank you. I think we're ready to open questions out for the audience. Can someone else start besides Imran? Okay, yeah, man.
Can I just clarify a point?
Is it to do with your manifesto?
No, it's with regards to the first question that you asked.
Yeah, you can answer that when it's your turn. Okay. Imran?
Saying that that you can't take up the presidency role because it might be too much commitment. Me and Emil, and I think Emil, we all miss Emil here, so props up to Emil. But we worked very closely together, and I'd say we committed as much time and effort as each other, so I don't think that's a valid reason.
Okay, well, I'll answer that but first of all, I'm going to disagree with that statement. I was part of the executive board. I saw the amount of work people put in, and quite frankly, the president and the vice president did not put in equal work, so I disagree with that completely from an outsider's view. But I would say that in the terms of it is a partnership, I completely agree. Over the summer, of course, you and Emil did an amazing job, got in contact with firms and several things like that. However, as a president, you run for a president to be the figurehead of a society, to be the person that leads a society into the right direction. If me and, say, one of the other presidential candidates had a conflicting view, it would be obviously open to the other executives to make a decision, and also the president will retain a veto to say yes or no. For that reason, I wouldn't take on the presidency role, because I personally don't feel comfortable with first retaining a veto and two, making a huge impact in terms of disagreeing with the entire executive board.
Any more questions? Come on, you know you want to ask one.
Go on, just ask one.
I'll ask you two questions.
Okay.
The first question is, you standing for vice president, you're the only candidate standing, right? So don't you think that's like a multiple question, yeah? Multiple choice question with just one choice? And that diminishes the position of the... We know about the nomination, yeah? Don't tempt me, that's where I was going.
No.
You should have let me finish. You don't listen, that's how you think it.
Oh my God. Guys, please. Back to the, yeah, thank you.
And the second question is, yeah, out of the 5 candidates that are standing for president, who would you prefer to work with?
Ooh. Okay, can I just say the second question with who would I prefer to work with? Due to the election bylaws, I'm not allowed to endorse any other candidate. For that reason, although I may have my preferences, I'm not allowed to express them. So unfortunately, I'm not able to express my preferences with who I would choose personally. In terms of your first question, I don't dispute the fact that, you know, as you said, it's like a multiple choice. However, there is an option to reopen nominations. I'm not saying don't reopen nominations. If you generally have no confidence in what I aim to do for the society, then by all means, please do tick the box to reopen nominations.
What I meant here, because I was interrupted, don't you think it has diminished the position of vice president?
I believe it does. However, I also see it as in the entire law school, and out of all of our members, I was the only one dedicated and motivated enough to stand for the position where other people didn't even attempt to try.
Going back to that, what do you think the reasons were people didn't attempt to try? Do you think they feared the competition, or?
Yes.
Honestly, I mean, the majority of people in this room, I mean, I've spoken to you at least one point throughout my time as communications officer. I mean, I hope you don't dispute the fact that I am friendly and approachable, and I do generally impose very good views. So I don't think that people should be embarrassed, and I'm not going to say any names, but some of the people that were wanting to run for vice presidency already, I encouraged them. They may have known that I was running, but I encouraged them. If they wanted to drop out, one, it shows their lack of commitment to the society, and two, it obviously shows that they're not dedicated enough to fulfill a role.
Aaron?
Just quickly, if you were to point out some of the flaws or faults of the last law society, what would they be and how would you improve upon them?
Okay. First of all, I don't believe in saying flaws because I was part of that previous executive board, so I'm not going to give my own flaws. But a few of the changes that I think we could improve is on the internal side of things, as communications, there was several last-minute events that I had to, say, push for and market 3 days before the event, which affected our turnout massively. It was only until the second semester that I implemented a new change and where that was changing. I would say that the workshops, we've had plenty this year. I mean, Sophie did mention about the BPP one with Freshfields. Even though that was with BPP, my thing is, why can we not bring in Freshfields rather than have it with BPP and an external organisation? We can bring in Magic Circle firms in order to talk to our students. There are several students in third year that have secured training contracts with Clyde & Co. and Allen & Overy. So it's not impossible. I would also say that in terms of making changes, I would change the social aspect completely. All we seem to do is go to Loop Bar, which although has been endorsed as our students' union, it's not really our students' union. They charge entry fees. Their prices are extortionate. If you go to Undercroft, you've got drinks for as cheap as 70p. You go to Loop Bar, you've got drinks for a tenner. So, yeah, so I obviously will change that as well. Make things a bit more classy. Go to fun activities such as go-karting, maybe bike riding. I know Emil last year said horse riding, but I wasn't really a fan of that. So, yeah.
I just want to bring you up on a point that you mentioned. You said you didn't want to say your own flaws. How are you going to improve yourself if you're not willing to admit your own flaws?
Okay. Well, because in terms of when your communications in terms of, because at the moment obviously I'm a communications officer, I can say my own flaws. However, that will differ in terms of people's individual flaws. I mean, I'm sure Imran has flaws that I'm sure Imran has flaws that he would like to. He wouldn't generally go around and necessarily think it was his flaws, but once we tell him it is, he will know. Same as Yaman. I'm sure Yaman has several flaws that many that people can point out. However, he wouldn't say it. In terms of communication manager, I'm comfortable with saying that a few of my flaws were in terms of timekeeping. During the first semester, I was at a pretty bad point in terms that everything came on top of me, and I generally was struggling with the way to handle things. But once I sought help from the other executives and they kind of pushed me back into the right direction, I was able to effectively be one of the figureheads for the society in the second semester.
Okay, thank you, Taher. Let's go to Imran, waving his arm round.
Taher, it's nice that you paint this rosy picture of being VP, but the truth is it isn't always bright, and I can speak from experience. Sometimes you say working with the president is your key aim, but sometimes you have to tell the president when he might be wrong or where he might not understand certain things, because at the end of the day, the president is just a person with the rest of us. How do you deal with confrontation?
Cool, okay.
Such as this.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that arguing resolves anything, so I wouldn't straight away go and argue with the person. Just like violence does not resolve anything, so I wouldn't just go and smack the president. but the camera.
It's pointed at your face.
Oh, is it? But no, what I would say is, in order to resolving conflicts can be done in a very systematic and straightforward way. I mean, as communications officer, I handled the internal complaints of the society. We didn't have none, but if we did have some, I would have been handling the internal complaints. I just believe that there's always room for improvement. So if any of the presidential candidates here, I did disagree with any of the presidential candidates, then what I would do is I would speak to them privately. I wouldn't undermine them in front of everyone, because they are still in a presidential, they're a figurehead, they're in the presidential authority, you are still lower than them in the hierarchy. I would pull them over, I would speak to them individually, I'd express my views, and then if there is still a massive disagreement, then we take it to the executive board and do a majority vote on it.
Do you have a question?
You just mentioned the word hierarchy. As VP in that hierarchy, you would be the second from the top. Would that influence your behaviour to someone who's perhaps lower down?
It wouldn't influence my behaviour. I mean, it wouldn't in so many terms. Like, I wouldn't become a dictator, if that's what you're trying to assume. But I think in terms of support, so I mean, the treasurer and the communications manager can come to me for support before they take it to the president. When I say hierarchy, I mean I will always be the first call. Sorry, are you guys listening? Yeah. I would.
So you're not going to be a dictator.
But I would say that I'd be the first point of call before the president, and I obviously, in terms of the hierarchy, I'd be there to support the other executives and lend them a hand.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions, so would you like to do a concluding remark, Taher?
Don't vote for Ron. Vote for me, because I'm enthusiastic, I'm determined, I'm motivated, I can be eccentric at times, I can bring unique points to the board. I've already been part of the Law Society, I'm also a LexisNexis brand manager. I've been in several positions of responsibility, and as I said, in every single one of my job roles and responsibilities, I've always been in the supervising position, even including this year, where I have been one of the figureheads for the society. Thank you.